Good morning, friends. It's Heather at Bush Poppy Farm. I'm super excited today because our ranunculus and tulips have arrived. They arrived late last night. So it's the next day and it's time to start pre-sprouting our ranunculus. So welcome back to the channel. We are pre-sprouting ranunculus today. This process is going to take about 14 to 21 days. So it's still going to be a while before we can plant the ranunculus in the field, but the tulips will get done this coming week. First off, I want to apologize for the sound. They're doing some tile cutting over there and it's loud. So I'm hoping that I can mask that a bit in editing. So I've got a box here I'm going to open. Now, I think I've said this before, but when flower farmers order things like ranunculus and stuff like that, so ranunculus, tulips, anemones, we order them a year in advance. So basically, when they're blooming is when we order them for the next year. So I kind of forgot what I got. I mean, I wrote it down, but it's not off the top of my head. So this box has a few tulips in it. This has, one set of tulips called, it's a Darwin hybrid called Hakoon, but we'll talk about all the tulips in the next video. So for now, what we've got is ranunculus, romance maritime, tecolote rainbow, tecolote pastel. So 3 varieties of ranunculus. Now I went low on variety, high on count this year. And I also have an entire box of ranunculus corms from last year that I'm gonna see if I can pre-sprout. So the best thing about pre-sprouting is it lets you know whether or not that ranunculus corm is gonna be viable or not, right? So some of those, they've been sitting dry for over a year. It's possible I'll try to pre-sprout them and none of them will have any root growth, which means it's not worth planting. So what we're gonna do is get these guys set up to pre-sprout and soak. So, okay, this one has a picture for you. This is ranunculus maritime. Now these are super expensive, so I didn't get a lot, but isn't that gorgeous? I had these last year and they all got eaten. So I didn't even get to experience them in the field. Now this type of packaging is fantastic because this is what we're gonna do for the others. So the others have arrived in bags, which is totally fine. That's how they normally come. And I have all these extra bags. These are tulip and daffodil bags from previous years. I saved them because I use them in this process. So this is exactly what we're going to be doing. There are 50 of these in here, and I'll show you what they look like when I open one of the bags. But basically, we're going to be taking each variety, putting it in one of these bags, labeling it, because that's really important. They all look the same when they're corms. And then I have a bucket over here and it's full of water. And what I'm gonna do is put these bags in there. We're going to plug in a fish bubbler. This is just a little bubbler stones for like a 10-gallon tank. Put that in there. That's gonna keep the oxygen circulating in there. This is also the bubbler I use to make compost tea and stuff like that. There we go. Okay, so it's making bubbles. That will keep the oxygen moving throughout there, because if these sit for too long in this water, they'll just rot out. So no more than 4 hours. I generally come back and check in an hour, and if they have plumped up, then it's done. Okay, so got those in. This is the next step, the next batch. This is 100 rainbow ranunculus. So I'm gonna grab one of these bags, and I don't get the big ones if I can help it, although that might be all I have in here. It's just harder to get them out. One of these bags. These are okay, but the corm tentacles get kind of stuck in them, so it's a lot easier to use these. All right, and then I'm just going to dump them in, but I'm going to label it first. So I have my marker. I've got some tape here, and all I'm going to do is write the name on here because these are going to be labeled in the field. The CSA folks will get some of these, but they're also going for wholesale, so I want to make sure I know what they are. Put this here. Then we're just going to open this bag and dump them in. chances are these ones are all gonna pre-sprout because they are coming from a supplier and that's their business, right? So it'd be unusual if some of them didn't, but the ones that I have saved over, those, I don't know, crapshoot. Okay, so let me show you what they look like before they are sprouted. So here is a ranunculus corm. They look like, I don't know, little octopuses or spiders, some people say. So it goes in the ground like this. The roots come out of the bottom here. There's a stem that comes up the top, and this is where the flowers come out of. So that's the orientation in the ground. Now they're dried out right now. After we hydrate these in the water, they're gonna plump up and all of these little tentacles will get fat and soft. And then we're gonna put them in soil and let them do their thing for 14 to 21 days. Okay, so that's my first bag there. And I don't think I'll be able to fit, maybe, I don't know if I'll be able to fit all of these in this bucket, so we may have to do it in 2 rounds, because if I cram too many in the bucket, then it will, there won't be enough circulation of the water or the air. Okay, what's the next one here? Oh, this is more rainbow ranunculus. So I got 200 of those. Well, that makes it easy. One less bag I have to use. Just gonna dump these in here. All right, and then these other 2 are tecolote pastel. Okay, perfect. Yeah, I think I actually can fit everything in here. This go around. Sometimes, if the bags are heavy, I might clip them to the edge of the bucket, but these seem to be doing okay. Put all these away. I use all these bags for various things, so if you ever order tulips or ranunculus or daffodils in mass, save your bags because they're useful for a lot of things. Okay, so this one is going to be the pastel, tecolote pastel. Now, some ranunculus corms, like the tecolote series, you can save and resprout next year, and that's what's in this box over here, is all the tecolote varieties. But other varieties, you are not allowed to save. You have to buy new every year, and that's just a licensing thing. And I'm not going to be the one to tell you that if you're doing it in small amounts, probably people won't know, but I mean, I don't. I'm too much of a rule follower, so I always buy the new ones if I need to. If I want to continue to grow them, I spend the money and buy the new ones. All right, so this is tecolote pastel. Okay, now these guys are just going to do their thing. They are labeled. They'll get labeled again when they go into their trays. Okay, so you can see they're in there floating. There's bubbles coming up because the bubbler is in there. It's keeping the water moving around. I don't have room to put all these guys in there, so I'll do that, you know, later tonight. I'll set them up maybe, or tomorrow morning, because I need to keep an eye on them. But now I'm going to assemble our trays. Need to put some soil in them and get ready for the next step. Okay, so it's been 3 hours and I think these are ready to come out. I wanted to show you what one of these that's been soaking looks like. It is plump. The tentacle looking things are fat and they're soft. So I've got my trays all set up here. I might need more, but we're gonna start with this. These are just closed bottom, so they won't drain water, but we're not gonna need much water in this situation. And I've put, first of all, a label on the end of each, so I know what I'm putting in. And then there's like an inch of any kind of potting soil, it doesn't really matter, in the bottom. So what we're gonna do is, we're gonna take our corms, and I'm just gonna dump them out. I'll clean these bags later because I'll reuse them. So we dump them out into the tray. And, you know, when I first started doing this, I was very concerned with making sure that they were all facing with the spikes down, and I realized that that doesn't matter. They will pre-sprout whether they're facing up or down. Okay, so spreading them out, and then all we do is cover them with soil. So these guys are very wet. They will maintain some of that moisture for a little while, but you don't want them to dry out completely, but you also don't want them to sit in water. So when you are, what I generally do is I will give this a spray with the hose just to kind of dampen the soil. And then I won't do anything else until I really feel like they're starting to dry out. So we're just covering them up, acting like we're planting them. That's basically what you're doing. And now that they've gotten wet, they are waking up, and the process of growing roots and starting to send out shoots will begin. So I'm just going to moisten this with my hose and then start on the others. Well, there you have it. 5 trays of ranunculus started. That is 200, 400, 450 ranunculus corms. So should be a good amount of plants. I think all of them will work. And there's still a chance, I'll try tomorrow, it's too late in the day to do it now, to see if those other ones will pre-sprout, the ones that have been sitting dry for a year. And if they do, then that's even more. So, but there's plenty of space at the farm to put them in. So I feel very relieved. This is a project that I normally finish, like normally they'd be in the ground and done by now. But the reason it's so late is I screwed up and I put the wrong ship date. I think I usually have them shipped the end of September so that I can take the first 2 weeks of October to pre-sprout and then plant. And for some reason I put the end of October. So that's a real bummer. It'll be fine. Like I said, our ground doesn't freeze, but I'd wanted to be done by now. So, okay, so that's that. They're just going to stay here until they are sprouted. I won't even really I'll check on them in a couple days to make sure they're not dried out. But beyond that, I'm not going to bug them until at least 10 days goes by. Sometimes they sprout early enough. It just depends on the conditions. So you want to pre-sprout them in a darker area, like your garage or your basement or whatever, at something that's around 50 degrees or a little bit warmer for that time. So they don't want heat, because heat actually throws, high heat throws ranunculus into dormancy. So anything above 80 degrees they won't do anything. So try to keep them in a cooler side, but you don't want freezing cold. Ranunculus can tolerate cold temperatures, but when you get below about 28 degrees Fahrenheit, they freeze. And then when they thaw, they rot. So you want to keep an eye on that. If your area, once you have them planted, is going to go into a hard freeze, I would recommend using row cover, sometimes 2 layers of row cover for that freeze period, just to keep them from getting that cold. Most floating row covers or frost covers will give you about 5 degrees of additional warmth. So that's a lot when you're talking about the difference between a hard freeze and just a light frost. So, all right, so that's gonna be it for ranunculus. Now, coming up on Monday, we will be going out to start planting the tulips. There's a lot of them, and I'll go over all the different varieties Those are pretty easy to plant too. Again, we'll be setting up those beds by adding soil on the bottom, putting the tulips in and then covering them, and then covering that with hardware cloth so that they're sandwiched between hardware cloth. And that's because tulip bulbs are tasty to critters, and squirrels, mice, rats, or whatever, they'll go over the top and go in and dig out those those tulip bulbs and eat them. Again, full of nutrition and apparently tasty. So if I protect them on the top as well, then I don't have to worry about that. And then once they start coming up in the spring, I can take that hardware cloth off the top. All right, that's gonna be it for me today, you guys. I hope you have a wonderful time in your garden, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.